bits? Did they get chopped?
Oh yeah, they got chopped. I know.
They were my favourite bits.
I know. I should have kept them. I should have kept them and sent them to you. Hi, Kitty.
Hi, Kitty.
Yeah.
Hi, Luna. Is Luna there? Yay!
Oh.
Also, you know, we love and care about you.
Oh yeah.
But also, is the dog there? Is the dog there?
Come on, like I don't think anybody is as cute as Luna is. She's just perfect little creature. Luna. Hey, Luna, my good girl.
Luna?
Oh.
Oh, and hey, there's another babe in the background there.
Oh, you.
Hey, Rory.
Oh, my creature. My Jim Henson creation. Oh.
Wait, is that Luna or Rory?
Yes. We haven't even started and it's very hot already.
It's so hot. Has everyone been hydrating properly today? Well, good. Glad to see it. Glad that is a big ass bottle of water, Rory.
So, because of the day it was, I've been doing some research on the genie. So, and it turns out, hey Cara, they're from the elemental plane of air and have quite a lot of hit dice. So I feel that I should probably do some research from somewhere else. But so far, yeah, there's a lot of stuff in here that's quite problematic because this was written in the year 2002. So it's a little bit
out
odd.
there.
Do not trust.
How are you, Frankie? What have you been up to?
I've been entirely cooking and eating and reading today, which has been nice. I read out in the garden, getting through this cookbook, and enjoying it very much. And I made pasta, and I roasted some baby courgettes, and I had those, and I had the pasta with lemon and duck egg yolk and parsley, and it was very nice. It's very goddamn nice. I like pasta now. That's all I'm interested in.
Did you not like pasta before?
I mean, I liked it, but I didn't like it, you know?
Fucking love pasta.
Get some low grocery on it.
I lust for pasta, man.
Oh my god. Pasta, right?
I had a torrid affair with some linguine this evening. It was wild.
Oh, did you?
It was disgusting to watch, but kind of hot.
You couldn't look away.
I do love to watch a sexy man eat pasta, you know? That's definitely a thing.
Have you stopped doing Lady and the Tramp with it?
Ooh, I think I've been a little bit put off by that whole concept since the Bronze Duke of Edinburgh practice expedition, which is all of the Duke of Edinburgh that I've ever done. I didn't do my actual award and I didn't do any of the other stuff. I just went along on the bronze practice mission. And when we went and we camped up for the night and everyone made like dry spaghetti over the camping stove, we ended up playing a game whereby, you know, you had like two of you would have like a thing of piece of spaghetti in your mouths, and see, now I say it sounds weird. I think I can't remember what the aim of the game was, but I think it was the idea that you would kind of like, I don't know whether it was like pasta chicken, and that you would kind of like creep your way in. I think that was it, that, you know, the two of you would like, you know, work your way into the center of the pasta. But I vaguely remember playing it with, I think, Victoria, my friend Victoria, and we got to about here, and Victoria just suddenly applied the most mighty suction of any living creature that I've ever experienced, and she sucked the pasta out of my mouth and like into her, like the whole piece of pasta.
Yes.
And
Just
like
unraveled.
and it was like the, you know, what's the opposite of kink? Like, you know, the
Like when you unlock a tape measure and it goes.
yes, exactly. Yeah, I like fully
Yes.
sealed up in that moment. And so I feel a little bit weird about the whole concept of eating pasta in like Lady and the Tramp style now. I don't think I could trust anyone not to like.
It's a very niche phobia, that.
Mm.
Can I describe my more positive pasta experience today?
Oh my god, please do.
I basically had whole grain pasta, like spaghetti, but I also made courgette spaghetti because I've got a spiralizer type thing, and I had a big courgette. Like I had two small ones about this size.
All right.
And I had one that, okay, I'll zoom back. You know, as in the other one was like
Back more.
bigger. It was a chunky boy, and the
We
big
joined
end-
at the best time in this conversation.
I was going to say, Katie and Nick, in case you were wondering, Malcolm's telling us all about how big his courgette is.
It was a chunky boy.
was, I'm afraid, was.
What?
Yeah, so it's got spiralized all the way through, and then I had sort of olivey tapenade and black olive and cashew and carrots and bits and bobs and tasty in it. And it was very good. And I've got 3 large portions for the weekend of work. So
Ooh, that sounds
Katie is
delicious.
turned into a dog.
What?
Yes.
Oh, okay, there we go. Sorry,
Also-
I just saw a dog. I was like,
Also-
dog labeled as Kate Paula.
Who is the best dog? The very best dog.
So all
Battery
done.
low.
Also, hi everybody. Hi Ian. Hi Teddy. Hey Malcolm. Hi. Hello everybody.
hey, Laura came back.
Laura came back. Hi Laura.
We didn't scare someone off.
Yeah, you are. Come for the story, stay for the courgette chat.
Love a bit of courgette chat. So
Is-
courgette non-cold.
Has everyone who I haven't already checked with, have you hydrated today? It's been very hot. Are you all fully hydrated?
It's been Scotland.
Oh.
It was still very hot.
Not
In
very.
In
Malcolm,
San Francisco.
Malcolm, whatever you're drinking, I don't know if that counts as hydration.
Possibly not. It's a very fine rum.
What kind of rum?
Diplomatico.
But that is my favourite rum.
It's so good. I just fantastic flavor. I can't be bothered using my words.
Using my
Courgette.
Yeah, them. That is not how one drinks.
Oh god, it's really fucking hot still. It started raining, like the heavens, about like 20 minutes ago, the heavens opened, and I'm hoping that the
It has
heat is
absolutely
broken.
shat down with rain at my house.
Yeah. We tried to have a barbecue.
So it was red hot, and we got a barbecue and lit that.
Only
and
one we've had this year.
Cooked sausages on it, and we were cooking more stuff, and then the heavens opened. We had to put a table over it to protect it.
Oh,
Yeah, the
sweet.
thunder.
I'm so
Oh,
sorry
yeah.
to hear that.
Thunder
About
and
7
lightning.
o'clock, the air just turned to water. It was like a solid wall of water.
Yeah.
That was,
Oh.
Yeah.
Was it, hold on, how's this for a segue? Was it like the flood in last session of this book that we might...
it might have been.
Go on.
Speaking of which, is it story time?
Is it story?
I think perhaps it might be story time because I'm not going to get a better segue than that.
The camels say yes.
Love that.
Then. So, I've had a little bit of a look-see in terms of how much we got through last night and how much there is in the book, and I think, and I've done a little bit of a kind of sort of potential dividing it up. If everything goes as I think that it might, then it looks like we will be finishing not next Thursday, but the Thursday after. So Thursday, will that be the 13th? 13th?
The 13th is a Thursday.
That is the one. In that. So, like, we'll give it a few more days to see if any of these end up taking longer or shorter than I am anticipating. But just so that people are aware, that's going to be how long the book is going to be, roughly. All sound good? Now. So you're all muted. You're all hydrated. You're all very beautiful. But are you sitting comfortably? Then I'll begin. Chapter 5. Oh no, I think I just say 5 for this, don't I? 5. The bower smelled of sage and jasmine and fear. There was no hint of sheep or sand, for we were in the centre of the casa, and even the desert struggled to meet me here. I sat on cushions sheathed in the finest silk, and all around me hung draperies and veils of a sheer material I could not name. They must have cleaned it since the last wife died, but something lingered. The air was still and thick, and I could not feel the barest breath of wind. The lamps burned hot and straight, unflickering, and I waited. They had cut my nails to the quick, finger and toe, and rubbed them with hard grit so that the edges were soft. I could not pluck a thread from my veil, and it would be some days before I could weave again without being as clumsy as a novice. When faced with Lomelkeen's bare skin, I would not be able to mark it. They had checked my teeth too. The city women cleaned their teeth with mint water, but we scoured ours with fine sand collected from the wadi bed. The skulls in our catacombs had neat rows of teeth, even those of my kin who had been old when they died. The women who bathed me had gaps in their mouths or crooked smiles. I wondered if they feared that I would bite him, but I suppose there was nothing they could do. If my sister had been part of my wedding, she would have waited with me, and our mothers as well. They would have whispered secrets, things never said aloud to men, but I was alone. I had not been fed, and I was glad. My nerves thus far were settled, but had I a stomach full of city food, new and unusual to me, I may have been otherwise. They had not left me a time candle, and I could not see the sky nor read the water clock that stood in the corner. But I do not think I waited long before he came. He wore silks, as I did, except his were dark blue, against skin paler than mine. Lomelkeen had been a great hunter once, but no longer did he spend very much time beneath the sun. His trousers were caught above his waist in a jewelled belt that wrapped around him 3 times and was fastened with a snake's head eating its tail. The lamplight gleamed on the worked metal of the clasp, finer than any I had seen. His shirt had wide sleeves. My clothing was all simple ties that, once pulled, would reveal my body underneath. I had no idea how I was meant to undress him. He sat straight-backed and fine, crossing his ankles and placing his hands upon his knees. He did not look like a predator, except for his eyes, which gleamed as they took me in. I breathed slowly, the way an antelope breathes when it smells a lion in the air. "My common wife," he said at length. His voice was very soft, as it had been when he spoke to the horse, but I did not expect him to show me the same kindness he had showed it. You are not afraid of me. Tell me why. There is no cause for fear, I told him. You do not worry that I will call for your death, right in this room, if you do not please me, he asked. I know you can and might, I said. The flood will come fast and without warning because the ground is not accustomed to it, and therefore it is not worth fearing. That much is true, he said, and smiled. His teeth were straight and there were no gaps between them. But I think you will do better than one night. I am yours to command, husband, I said to him and met his eyes. When my mother spoke to our father, she often said that. He liked it, the way she put herself in his hands. Until just now, I had not realized that since my mother was the one who allowed it, she had more power than even he might have realized. Lomelkeen thought I was less than him, but his was not the only tally. Lomelkeen smiled. Tell me about your sister, he said to me. The men whispered that she was fairer and marveled that I did not choose her. You did that on purpose, and I would know why. There was something in his smile that lit a flame in my soul. The pieces of the tales I knew came quickly to me, the ones shaped like my sister and the ones to which she could be shaped. They flew about me and I plucked them from the air. Hold on, someone has just slipped me a note under the door. 1 second. Mum's going out. I'm to call her if there are any problems. Aww. What was I saying? Okay. Sorry for the interruption. The pieces of the tales I knew came quickly to me, the ones shaped like my sister and the ones to which she could be shaped. They flew about me and I plucked them from the air. There is a fire in my sister, I said to him, and I did not want you to have it. I still might, he said. You might die quickly, as you have said. The law prevents you, I replied. The men of the city and of the herds will not allow it. If you break it once and steal a daughter, what is to stop you again? I am patient, Lomelkeen said. Perhaps I will simply wait. She will be too old, I said. She is my year twin, and she will be married by the time you return. The fiery ones do not marry young, he said. They wait for fire to match their own. I did not see that in your village. My sister finds the fire in others, I said. Her husband may be the quietest man at the market until he sees her. Then he will burn with a flame to match her own. You are so sure of her, he said. As sure as my soul, I said. He laughed, head back and teeth gleaming in the light. I felt something stir again, and my own fire grew hotter. I knew this feeling. I had felt it as I rode away from my village and my sister knelt to pray. Perhaps even now she wore her mother's priestly whites and had gathered the other women to her. I leaned towards him. In the desert, where the sun burns the hottest, there is a wind that can strip flesh from bones, I said. When it is in season, we leave old camels out to die. We hide in the safety of our tents with enough food and water to last until the winds have passed. And we wait. The camels moan at first when the wind starts. They know what is coming. They can smell it. But we tie them hard and they cannot break the bonds that hold them to the earth. They try though. They try for their lives. They scream when the first blast of hot air strikes them. That is how we know it is no longer safe to go outside and why we do not kill the camels before the wind comes. They are our last defense against the wind. They scream and scream. If the wind is hot enough, it is over quickly, but sometimes it lingers. Once, my sister could bear it no longer. She stole my brother's bow and peeled back the tent flap, holding it outward to protect herself from the wind. The wind was in her favour, and she shot the camel to keep it from screaming. Our father was so surprised he could not even scold her. "So your sister is a fool," Lomelkeen said, "and soft-hearted besides, if she could not bear a camel's suffering." "No, husband," I said. "My sister is clever. She held the bow against the tent flap so she would not be burned, and she killed the camel before it could panic and try to break free. It would have stayed tied, and it would have broken its bones, and we needed the bones to be hard and whole," I said. The fire raged in me with each word I spoke. "We use camel bones as tent poles to keep the roof above our heads. We use them to prop open the flap that lets the smoke out. The hot wind does not always come. Sometimes an old camel dies and must be skinned and cleaned in the fashion of an antelope, and its bones are useless because they have not been cured by the wind. We cannot use them to build anything. We can hardly even use them for kindling. My sister is no fool, and she is not tender-hearted," I said. "My sister fights for her home and takes what risks she must. That is why I put myself before her today, why I would not let you have her. My sister burns, and she does not burn for you." Lomelkeen was fast and grabbed my hands before I could even think to move away. It was his right to touch me however he wished, of course, so it was for the best that I did not shift. Where our skin touched, there was fire of a different kind. I thought I could see it, threads of gold and blue, desert sand and desert sky, bleeding from my body into his. But I had been a long time in the sun that day and did not trust my eyes. He held on for one breath, then 5, then 10. A strand of copper fire wound from his fingers to mine, so faint I wondered why I would imagine it at all. And then he released me. "Well done, wife," he said to me, and stood. "You will do well in my house." And then he was gone, the heavy air stirring behind him as he went into the night. I slumped back against the cushions, tired and elated at the same time. I wondered if my sister had felt any of the fire I shared with her tonight. I wonder if she burned, and if she knew why. She must have prayed all day, either to a family small god or to the shrine she had promised to make for me. Because I had felt my soul stir, and when Lomelkeen reached for me, I had seen the glamour of flames. I did not know what it meant, or even what had happened, and I did not care. I could hear the birds in the garden beyond the wall, and though I could not read the water clock, I knew that dawn must be close by. I had spent the night as the wife of Lomelkeen, and I had survived. Second. Lomelkeen rode into the desert as a man, and he was something else when he came out. He had gone to hunt lions, for his mother was fond of spinning yarn from the hair of their tawny manes, and because they preyed upon the villages around the desert's hem. He rode alone, as befitted a hunter of his class, but Nardiki the far-sighted watched his progress from the red stone cliffs, and Saria the fleet-footed stood beside, ready to dash to Lomelkeen if aid was required. Some say Lomelkeen met a cruel god in the dunes that day. Others say he bargained with a devil there. The skeptics looked up from their marble writing slabs and said he had stayed too long in the sun. God, demon or otherwise, it mattered not. The true difference was me. When I saw him, I knew he should be mine. He was taller than most, shoulders unstooped. He had never ground his own grain. His cloth was tightly woven, and there was something in his eyes that spoke of power. I wanted it, as I had wanted many things, and so I took. His mind was harder than I had expected, and it required some effort to slip into the cracks. He loved his people, and he had many of these, well. His sense of duty was strong. He could mend armour and bake bread, though his station rarely required either of him. But at the bottom, underneath the pride he took in his work and home, there was a worry that dragged a chasm through his thoughts. He was so young, and his father had ruled so poorly, and his mother was so ill. That is where I set my claws and teeth. I pulled upon his doubts, laying them bare beneath the hot sun. And where he quailed, I set my conquest. He fought, the best ones fight, but it was too late. I had him and he was mine. I stepped upon his duties and buried his loves. I kept only those pieces of him I wanted, the power, the knowledge, the ability to rule. When I opened his eyes for the first time, the world was smaller, but it was mine. The air filled his lungs because I let it. I could just as easily have snuffed him out. If I had wanted, I could have made him remove his shoes and let the sand burn his feet. I kept him in a corner of his mind, which I had not always done before. Usually when I took someone, they burned out fast and left me hungry. But Lomelkeen was different. He was stronger, and it pleased me to hear him scream. There was a roar, and I stood, leaning on his spear. My spear. I held it in his hands, my hands, as the lion drew near. Lomelkeen knew how to kill them without spoiling the pelt. He could make their death swift and painless, and take the mane home to his mother, who loved them even through her illness. But there were hyenas close by too, and when I threw his spear, my spear, I pinned down the lion's paw. My prey roared again, this time in pain. The hyenas heard the call and answered, their laughter rolling across the dunes as they spread out to surround the injured beast. The lion tried to fight them, but the hyenas were too many, their jaws too strong. They tore the golden beast to pieces, hair and blood and bones spread out across the sand, and then they ate him because they could. I made Lomelkeen watch. Six. It was a breeze that woke me, sweet-smelling air untouched by heavy incense. And for a moment, I forgot where it was I slept. But then the serving girl laid the tray behind my pillowed head, and I remembered. I breathed the clean air, let in by the open door I had not even seen the night before, when the candles had turned my eyes to haze, and sat up. "Lady Bless," said the serving girl, "you must drink the tea." I wondered if she had come to bring breakfast to the other girls and found only their corpses in the silk. She showed no surprise at finding me alive, and no relief either. She held the cup out to me, its ceramic shell so thin I marvelled it could hold liquid at all, and I took it from her with both hands. It tasted awful, and I recognised the flavour of the herbs from my mother's description of them. This was the tea that kept a babe from settling. Lomelkeen had only touched my hands, but I drank it down nonetheless. There had been powers I did not understand in the room with us last night. In the soft sunlight, it was hard to remember, but easier to believe. I still felt the faint stirrings in my chest and knew I could not doubt. The light that had passed between us, first from me to him and then back as different colours, was like nothing of which I had seen or heard. And I did not know who in this place I could ask. "Lady Bless," said the serving girl, "will you eat?" I wondered if she expected tears from me or lamentations. I crossed my ankles and held out a hand for the bowl instead. She bowed over it, and the bronze was cool in my fingers. The food was simple, as though the cook who prepared it knew that I was desert-born and feared that my new surroundings would make me ill. I folded hummus into bread and ate slowly, and the serving girl watched. She had my number of summers, I thought, though she was lighter-skinned beneath her veils. She had not seen the sun and felt the wind as I had. Her nails were short, like mine, and her hair was bound up neatly in coils around her head. It was a more elaborate style than I had ever attempted it, and I wondered how I might duplicate it, since I could not see how it was fastened beneath her silks. Then I remembered the bathhouse the evening before, and remembered that I might never do my own hair again. A queen's hair would be elegant and put in place by someone else. When I finished, she set the bowl down on the tray and pulled a cord near the foot of the bed. It rang with a soft chime, calling the other serving girls into the room. They began to open shutters and windows, air and light streaming in, and one took away the dishes. The first girl held her hands out to me, and I let her pull me from the bed. I followed her back along the path where I could hear the whispering mortar again. I stopped to see if she would let me, and when she did not push, I looked at the source of the sound. I had lived the night to see this, and I was not disappointed. It was a statue of a woman standing tall and proud, with each foot on the back of a lion. In her hands there was a jug held downwards, and from it poured a thin stream of water which fell on the multicoloured pebbles below. She was beautiful, but there was something in her eyes I did not like, something that did not match her face. "Lady Bless," said the serving girl, "that is Lomelkeen's mother, as carved by Fear Stone-Touched to celebrate her recovery." Lomelkeen's mother had suffered long and hard. Her health leached from her like bones left out in the sun, white and brittle and bereft of all that gave life. When Lomelkeen had come out of the desert, possessed by whatever demon he found there, he had cured her, but now she went no longer beneath the sun. I wondered if she ever met her son's wives, or if she ignored them. "Lady Bless," said the serving girl, and I followed her into the bathhouse. Today they dressed me more simply and used much less perfume. They combed my hair and coiled it and pinned it underneath my veil. I did not know what had become of my sister's purple dishtasha that I had worn here. It had seemed so fine when I put it on, and I did not even really remember when they had taken it off. I wondered if it had simply been discarded, or if it had been passed on to another to wear. I wondered if they had kept it to bury me in. The dress I wore now was so much finer, the silk thinner and the stitching so tiny I had to squint to see it. They painted my face, which they had not done the night before, lining my eyes with black and then blue to match the colour of the dress. With my eyes closed, I saw the people of my village as they woke in the morning and prepared for the day. Our father, returning, would find his second daughter gone. He might even mourn me, remembering the girl who had held his robe when the floods came, and the woman he might have bartered along with my sister for a marriage match. My brothers would not know what to say. After my sister and I had reached our 10th summer and came in from the herds to learn the tent crafts that would serve us during marriage, we had seen them infrequently. I looked past them in my mind's eye to the tent where my mother and my sister's mother now slept together. I pulled back the tent flap and leaned in. There was my sister's shrine, smaller than the one she had made for me in the caves, but lovingly crafted. It was built of dark stones and bound by a circle of purple cloth I knew was from the dress we had made together, the one I had taken from her when I saved her life. On it there stood a tallow candle in place of a lamp. These candles burned more quickly and were more expensive, but the light was cleaner, and it was said that small gods paid more attention to light that more closely matched the sun. My sister knelt before the shrine and whispered in the family tongue. My mother knelt beside her, though she did not speak. Her face was tear-stained, and I knew that she would not pray for me until her prayers were made of anger and hope. Tear prayers were for the dead, the kind we had said for my sister's brother when the flood took him, and for the babies that my mother had lost. My sister's mother knotted black threads and laid them atop the purple silk to finish the binding. I hoped they would remember that my sister needed a new dress. There was no need for this shrine to become their lives. Lady Bless, said a serving girl, and I opened my eyes. I wore a purple dishbasha last night, I said. The words came unbidden, and they were the first I had spoken in hours. The serving girls jumped, but then smoothed their faces. Yes, Lady Bless, said the girl who had carried my breakfast. I would like it back, I said to her. My sister made it with me, and I do not wish for it to be destroyed. Of course, Lady Bless, she said to me. I was not used to idleness, and so the day dragged on. There were no craft tools in my room, and the serving girl who sat with me did not speak. I endured the morning and a lunch of roasted peppers, and then when evening fell, I was taken back to the bathhouse. My face was washed and my hair let down and combed with perfume. Again, they wrapped me in fine silks with ties so fragile that they might leave me bare at any moment, and again they returned me to my room to wait. L'Homelquin came as he had the night before and sat down, this time on the bed. You still have no fear of me, he said. I still have nothing to fear, I told him. Tell me more about your sister, he said then. If you would die for her, she must be worthy of tales. She is, I said. Together, we made a dress that was beautiful enough to fool a king into picking the magpie instead of the wren. That dress is lost to her, L'Homelquin said. If I wished, I could have it destroyed. I know you have asked for its return. My sister will make other dresses, I said to him. Our father loves her mother well and brings her the finest silks. Her mother is not so foolish as to waste them on herself, and she has taught my sister to make the most delicate skirts and veils, so that when she goes to market, she catches the eye of everyone who sees her. She will stitch her own secrets now, and they will be all the more powerful, for they will not be shared with anyone, not even with me. Maybe I will see her in the market and break the law, L'Homelquin said. You will not, I told him. I did not fear him, and thus it was easy to tell him the truth. You need the merchants. If you break that law in the market, they will wonder what other laws you might bend. L'Homelquin smiled like a lion, and again he reached for my hands. Again I let him take them without resisting, even though tonight his fingers were clasped more tightly around my wrists. I watched as purple and black fire, silk and secrets, stretched from my hands to his. Blood roared in my ears and the lamps flared more brightly. And then the copper fire came from his fingers to mine. It was no imagined sight, these lights. The cold light was his power, I was sure of it, and somehow the copper fire was mine. Tonight it shone even more brightly. My vision and hearing cleared, and I let L'Homelquin see that I would not be cowed. He leaned forward and placed his lips in the centre of my forehead. I would not say it was a kiss, but it seemed to be all he required. We stitched it together over many desert nights and wove such secrets with threads as cannot be unbroken. I said the words in my storyteller's voice. His fingers did not lessen their hold. I could sense that he wanted to know, that he would compel it from me, yet I felt my own fire and would not be compelled. The secrets were little things for the most part. Which of the sheep we would try to ensure were part of her dowry, which of the pots she would take with her when she went wedded from our father's tents, which meals she would never serve once she had the run of her own household. They were nothing, and they were everything. They were my sister, and I would never tell him what he had missed. In the morning, there was a neatly folded dish dasher made from purple silk and stitched with black thread lying at my feet, and I was alive to see it. How are we doing for time? One more. Excellent. That is as I had planned. 7. In the days that followed, I learned some measure of the casa's operation. The girls who brought my tea and fresh clothing each morning, and presumably the girls who would shroud my body and sing the last songs when Lomelkeen finally tired of me, were all pretty. They wore simple white gowns with a shift beneath, the colour my mother wore when she played priestly roles, but in a much more severe style. Their hair was as dark as my own, but of a shorter length, and braided in a single coil around their heads. I longed for a style of that sort, but each day when I was dressed, the woman who did my hair fell to experimentation. The elaborate designs put weight in strange places, and I often had a headache by noon. Also, they itched. The bathhouse attendants were much the same, though they wore only their shifts when they were at their work. I was given a bath each morning, and I confess I took no small amount of joy in the sheer amount of water that was allotted to me. It was so hot that it steamed, and it seemed that I breathed the water in my lungs as much as I sat in it. If I was to be here, I would enjoy what I could of this place. I was less enamoured of the afternoons. I might walk in the gardens before the sun grew too hot, or again as it began to set and the night flowers bloomed, but I soon tired of the same statues with their haunted eyes, and the same fountains, though I did love their songs. On the 4th day, I caught the hem of a serving girl's dress when she would have left me. "Please," I said to her, as I would have spoken to my mother, "is there not some craft that I might do? The hours are long, and I am not accustomed to idleness." She hesitated, and I knew the reason. As Lomelkeen's wife, I ought to have had the run of the casa's craft halls, supervising the embroidery and the weaving. At the same time, they could not give me anything sharp, nor strong weaving cords, lest I turn them upon myself. That left spinning. I supposed I could do some damage with a spindle whorl, but once the distaff was broken, I would have naught but a ceramic disc. I drew myself up, remembering that here I was no one's daughter. Here I was a queen, for however long I might last. "I shall spin," I said, taking the decision from her. "It is my favourite, and I do not wish to interrupt what process your craft mistresses have established." "Yes, Lady Bless," the girl said, and led me into the corridor. When we entered the thread room, all heads turned and all conversation ceased. There were some 24 women sitting grouped at various tasks, and yet if any of them had dropped their needles, the sound would have echoed. The girl looked as though she wished the floor would eat her bones, but I walked proudly. I followed her to the piles of new carded wool, and she handed me a spindle before moving to take her own seat with the embroiderers. It took my fingers some time to regain their skill. I had not had much cause to spin at home, being put to embroidery as soon as I was able to understand its worth. Moreover, our wool was a great deal coarser. My mother could have had finer threads if she wished them, but they were brought to us by our father. We did not make them. My hands were chapped from the desert wind and calloused from my earlier years with a shepherd's crook. They snagged my thread and frayed it, and again I undid my work. The others said nothing, but I could feel their eyes on me. Before, I had wanted their attention, had wanted them to remember who and what I was. Now they looked upon me still, but they saw a poor desert girl who could not even spin properly, and I wished for it to stop. "Lady Bless." There was a voice at my elbow. I turned, and there stood an older woman with gnarled fingers and a kind smile. She held out a pair of soft white gloves, and I took them with a nod of thanks. "The desert breeds strong," she said. It was an old saying that our fathers liked to tell my brothers when they complained of the wind and the sand and their herds. And we must find ways to live in our father's tent. I finished the words, and her smile grew. She returned to her seat, and I took up the spindle again. Now the thread grew beneath my fingers, coiling into the basket between my feet in an even strand. I felt the eyes of my companions turn to their own work, and when they no longer looked at me, they forgot that I was there to hear their words. My mother had told me that when she first married our father, when he had not yet built the fortune to establish a permanent camp in his father's settlement, she and my sister's mother had gone with him in the caravan. It was a harder life for them. In addition to constant travel, they were each night at the mercy of some new trader's wives and mother. The men all respected our father as a merchant who was set to establish himself, but the women were not so sure. Why had he married then if he was not yet wealthy enough to keep his wives at home? And why had he married twice? Yet every night, my mother and my sister's mother had gone to the women's tents and taken out their thread boxes. There was always mending to do, and sometimes they had finer work if our father's trades had gone well. The others saw the work they did, saw the work they did together, and they understood that our father was not foolish, and neither were his wives. Then the other women would start to talk to one another. Through them, my mother's learned more of the habits of the men our father traded with than he had ever dreamed of. With your eyes on your work, my mother had said to me, thinking to prepare me for a trader's life, it is easy to forget who is present to hear your mouth. You and your sister must remember that when you are wed. Do good work, and those you work with will tell you things beyond what you can imagine. Advice for a trader's wife, perhaps, but it would serve me well in the casa too. As I spun, the women fell to talking around me. It was quiet at first, like the whispers in water-starved wadi reeds. They did not say anything that day about Lomelkeen or about the casa, but they did not hold their tongues when I was present. I knew that if I lived, I might soon hear something I could put to use. I focused on the wall instead. This too was a trick I had learned from my mother. Spinning does not require a great deal of thought, and when you have become accustomed to the weight of the spindle and the feel of the wool, even your eyes are not necessary. My mother's mother had spun while blind for the last 10 years of her life, and yet the threads my mother used to embroider her wedding dishdasher was as fine as any our father might have brought for her later. Spinning is a dreamer's craft, and I wished to dream of my sister and of a place that was not so closed and full of fear. My breath slowed to match the rise and fall of the spindle, and my eyes drifted back and forth with the wall. The thread I spun was raw, they would dye it later, but soon enough I saw the black fire of my sister's dark hair in the dirty white of the wool. She was in the caves, the hill where we buried our dead and where we had first seen the rain. My mother and my sister's mother stood beside her, and all of them were clad in the priestly whites the women of my family wore in that place. I could see their mouths moving, though I could not hear their words, and I knew that no one had died. My sister was learning the songs, not burying someone, and our mothers were teaching her to follow in their work. I was puzzled by this. My sister would still marry, surely, and leave our father's tents. If she were to learn the songs to sing to the dead, it would be her husband's songs she sang. If she learned our songs, if she were tied to our family's caves, the dead might not let her leave them. They would always require her to keep them. But I knew the vision before me did not lie. My sister was learning our own death songs, and that meant she would stay in our father's tents forever, and always near my shrine. I wondered if our father knew what they were doing. I could not imagine he would give his approval. He respected the dead, of course, not least because his father's father's father was the small god to whom he owed his trade. That shrine was the most often visited in our catacombs. Even in the dry season, it had sweetwater flowers on it and pickled roots. It was not the shrine before which my sister now stood. This shrine was new, stone still bleached white from the desert sun and not shadowed by time under the earth. On it there was a scattering of purple cloth that I recognized immediately. When we had cut the dish dasher from my sister's wedding, her mother had kept the scraps to use for luck pieces in later works. We had not yet begun those, and so the pieces had stayed in her thread box. But now they were on the shrine, laid out for the small gods to see. Laid out for me to see. It was my shrine they were teaching her to keep. The shrine that would make me a small god when I died, and the same one she had promised to build while I yet lived. I had seen them praying to another, smaller shrine in the tent and thought it the full extent of her vow. She must have told my mother, perhaps to stay her grief, and then they must have decided together to move their worship to our holiest place. She would never leave, not now. She would be mine forever. Lady Bless, said the kind woman from earlier. Lady Bless, it is time for you to go. I shook myself from the trance. I was surrounded by dirty white thread, neatly spun and coiled, and the lamps were lit. It had been hours. I thank you, I said to them, all of them. I will see you tomorrow. They nodded. It was a pretty wish. That night, Lomelkeen came to me and asked me to tell him of my sister. My father will be back with the caravan now, I said to him. He had not yet taken my hands, and yet I felt a fire in my skin nonetheless. It spun, burning, like the spindle whorl. He will have brought with him final news of my sister's marriage. Her marriage, he said to me. You lie. I do not, I said to him, though I did. These past few seasons my father has sought a husband for my sister, and he has found one to his liking and to hers. He cares so much for her tastes. My sister must love the one she weds, I said, and the heat within me surged. And in him she will stir all the fires of creation. I lied, but I saw the morning all the same.
More.
There's still 7 minutes.
More.
7 whole minutes. Let me see.
Yeah.
No, I think I'm going to call it there. I think, yeah, I know.
We started at 10 after.
What's that, love?
We did start at 10 after, but that's fair. If you're ready to stop, you're ready to stop.
We all start after.
Y'all so thirsty.
Let me see how much.
We need to hydrate.
Yeah, everyone hydrate. No, I think this is a good place to stop. I think in terms of the sense and flow of the book, I think that is going to be a good place to call it. Oh, but I'm so glad that you are enjoying it enough that you would like more.
Next time I shouldn't try and emotionally manipulate you.
I'm strong. I am iron. So, how are we feeling about it? Gordon, do you have any notes, my love?
I was very tired, so I only have several pages of notes today. What is this? But yeah, there's quite a lot. But I mean, and on first impressions, I'm just one is Carmen here? Just the terrible dude who is unfortunately sounding a bit redeemable, and I'm not too happy with that. Like, you know, he shows up and he's like, I'm an aristocrat who's hunting a lion, but actually I care for my people, and my father is evil, but I am noble and will win. And then he's like, the demon gets him. But he's still there, hidden away to maybe be drawn out later. if only someone else can play with his magic and he can play with her magic, and together they can make a circus or something.
What was that, Rory?
I can fix him.
Maybe she can spin him better.
So, yeah.
Only I do enough.
Fallacy of the ages.
Spin me round, right round like a rocket, baby. Sorry, not sorry.
The first bit where she said, "Oh, you know, I can't do this, I can't do that, but I can do spinning." I was just imagining all the bikes. It's like, oh, it's not a great idea.
I had thought, like, I can do spinning as in, like, little kid just going around in circles in the middle of an empty room. Like,
see, I just thought of her with, like, fucking headphones on, blasting some Darude Sandstorm.
Also, I hope you noticed that we're gathering foods for our grand finale party. We've got hummus bread, roasted peppers.
Hummus!
Nice having some savory food.
This is gonna be a proper feast. We're gonna have like a whole meal, a whole ass meal.
Salt.
Do you have to brush your teeth with sand afterwards?
Yes.
Oh, no.
We may not get names, but we get lots of food.
Oh my god, I've just seen Duncan's background that is just Duncan now. Duncan, I don't know if you've left or if you have become a camel.
Yeah, camels.
The flick of the tail continues to be satisfying. I just imagine the tents we could build from them.
Oh, Jesus, Ted. What the fuck? Oh, I should probably stop the recording. Everybody say goodbye to the catch-up crew.
Goodbye,
to the catch-up crew.
Goodbye.